Hi, this is Dan Barry with the Convention Collective. I'm here with Chris DeMoulin, the CEO of Comikaze, who runs LA Comic Con, kind of talking about the upcoming show as well as some other stuff that they have planned. So, Chris, I know that you guys just had a microcon in April. Do you have plans for any more microcons coming up?
We've been talking about it. I think the first one, we were happy with the way it went. We learned a lot about how to do hybrid digital stuff, which was part of the purpose, because I think all conventions are going to need to be increasingly combining digital options with live options as we go forward. The fan feedback was really good for the people that came. Would have liked to have had a few more people there, but the first time you do any event, it's always that's the biggest challenge is turning out the crowd for something new. But we had several hundred people there, and the folks that came had a really good time. The talent had a really good time, and so I think we're going to look at doing another one maybe in September as we lead into the live event in December.
Got it. Now I know with LA Comic Con coming up, what do you feel sets that con apart as a destination con for people to travel to?
Well, I think the thing about a really good con is that it really reflects the city that it's in. And so with LA, LA is such a unique mashup of pop culture because so much of American pop culture comes from here, and celebrities and the beach and skateboarding lifestyle. So I think what makes LA different is that we have, I think, a broader mix of celebrities who show up and things that you can do when you come. I think the artists that we bring in reflect that. I think, we always end up with about between 600 and 700 exhibitors and artists, and you get a really nice flair for LA with that. And then, A-list talent. You have to have some great people. Frank Miller's never come to our show before. Giancarlo Esposito's coming this year. He's never come before. So I think you always have to have some of the fan favorites to fuel the nostalgia of why people go to cons, but also some people that are in very current entertainment to sort of keep it fresh for everybody.
Now, I know you guys have already started announcing some guests. What are you the most excited for about this year's live con?
Well, okay, so me personally versus us as an organizer. Me personally, as my staff, the whole team will tell you, I'm a huge SpongeBob fan. So anytime Tom Kenny's able to join us, I'm thrilled. Pushed me right back in my family room 10, 15 years ago when my kids were little and we all used to sit on the couch and memorize every single episode. I mentioned Frank Miller. Frank is a giant in the comic world. He's never come before, and I think that'll be, with Stan's passing, Frank is really one of the giants, the legends in the business, and so it'll be great to have him there. We also have Giancarlo Esposito, who's got an amazing resume, but most recently with Mandalorian coming to join us, and we're looking at hopefully bringing in some other elements of Mandalorian and Star Wars to build that out. And then somebody like Zach Levy, who's really sort of exploded in the last few years, especially with Shazam. For him to come for the first time, I think is exciting too. So the thing I have to say, though, the thing that I think everybody should do is look at the guest list, because the thing about a good con is there's always going to be one guest or one vendor who's selling the thing that is most meaningful to you, that special show from your childhood or young adult times that just has so much emotional resonance to you. And it's when that celebrity is there that it may not mean as much to everybody else, but to you, that's the world. And I think, to me, that's the fun of discovery at a good convention, is that you have a really eclectic variety of celebrities there for all the fans.
Now, I know it's been almost, by the time the con rolls around, it will be almost 2 years since your last one. Yep. How will this year's LA Comic Con be different from the one you guys did in 2019?
Well, yeah, we did October of 2019 to December of 2021, so it's a long time. One of the big things people will notice who've been before is that we're now using the entire convention center. So we've spread out. In the past, we were in South Hall and sort of outside of that. We're now spreading out. We'll take over all of the West Hall, all the other conference rooms. And so we'll have a little more content, but we're also going to spread everything out because nobody really knows exactly what the LA Department of Public Health guidelines are going to be for density at big events at that point. So we want to make sure we have tons more space so we have the ability to spread things out if we need to. And I think what that will mean is that South Hall, which is where most of the exhibitors are, and it's probably where the main stage will be, but so autographs and photographs will have their own separate hall. Registration is going to have its own separate hall. We'll have an entirely different activation going on in the West Hall So I think you'll find there's more stuff there, and you can really get around and see it, because it's by being spread out, the crowds won't be as intense in any one place.
So you're basically going to do what you had originally planned for the 2020 con, where it's spread out more. That way there's a lot more space.
Yeah, I think we're definitely going to take the whole convention center. The only difference versus the December con that we had planned last year is we'll probably be able to have more content in those spaces. So we've got a couple of different things we're working on right now to bring whole new activations into some of those areas. So we won't have to use them just for social distancing. We'll actually be able to use them for fan content.
Now, being that COVID, hopefully by December, will have ramped down quite a bit, how confident are you of a strong turnout this year compared to the 2019 show?
It's hard to know exactly what it's going to be compared to 2019. I absolutely believe there will be tens of thousands of people who come and buy tickets. And, until we actually get to the event, we're not going to know if we had 123,000 people in that was the total attendance in 2019. And I think it could be that, it could be 10 to 20% less than that, and it could be 10% more than that, because there's so much pent up demand. I think the thing we want to make sure that we do is we understand what all the guidelines are, and no matter how many people show up, we're prepared to handle them, we're prepared to process them quickly, get them in, get them on the floor, provide a safe experience for them, so that everybody who does come has a great time.
Now, we took a couple of questions from some of our viewers and readers of the site. One of them asked about the wrestling area. Any chance, and they were basically complaining that it was too close to some of the actual comic creators and artists, and it was tough for them to hear. Is there any plans for the wrestling area to move to a different area or not be there at all?
We're still talking to a couple of different wrestling folks right now. We haven't finalized anything, but I would love to get that feedback if you can send it to me, because that's one of the things that as I recall in 2019, that came in kind of late. We didn't have a lot of options on where to put it. So if where it was awkward, with 1.2 or 1.3 million square feet of space, we definitely have the space to move it someplace that'll be best for the fans to enjoy it.
And another one of our readers basically asked this question. LA Comic-Con usually has excellently created major and independent comics representation through the Comic Bug with the Bug Pavilion. Are you looking to continue fostering and improving those relationships with creators?
Absolutely. I think it's one of the most important things that what we do. I mean, we'll probably have anywhere between 250 and 350 artists who come in, and for artist tables, we have a lot more than a lot of other shows because there are so many creators in LA. And I think that feeling of, you turn down an aisle as a fan and you find something there that you've never seen before, that sense of discovery and wonder and delight that you found, a great new artist or a great new, collectible vendor that's a huge part of what it means to come to a convention. So we're 100% dedicated to that. We've worked with Comic Bug and a lot of the different comic shops in the area. They give us feedback on artists that they think are great, and we provide free tables to some of those people to make sure that they can come. So yeah, we're 100% dedicated to making sure that the local artists have every opportunity to come and put their stuff in front of the fans and let the fans find them.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite parts of your show is the huge amount of artists there, just from bigger name artists to independent artists, ones I would have probably never heard of, if not for a con like you inviting them.
Right. No, I as a fan, I totally agree with you. It's one of my favorite parts of the show.
Now, do you have any, I know it's a little bit early to talk about programming, but do you have any programming planned or that would promote or analyze POC or gender diverse stories?
I think one of the things we try to do is we have more panels because of the space that we have. We have more panels than most shows. So we'll have as many as 160 different panels. And getting that kind of diversity is super important to us. Really, from the very founding of the show, we've been very dedicated to being a completely open and inclusive environment, making sure that everybody across the LGBTQA spectrum has the opportunity to come and tell their story, and as an artist and as a fan to come and have a completely comfortable and accessible experience. So what we'll do is when we're ready to have submissions for panels, is we make sure that goes out far and wide. It's on all of our social media. We send it out to partners so they can put it on their social media to invite people who have ideas for panels to come in, and making sure we have that diversity is one of the the factors, the filters that we always use in trying to choose the 140 to 160 panels that we have.
Now let's talk about your con versus other cons, being that your con is probably going to be the largest con in all of California and probably close to the West Coast other than Emerald City this year. What things do you think you can consider in the future to try and compete with other cons like San Diego and New York Comic Con?
I personally don't think cons compete with one another. There are very few cons that draw more than 5 or 10% of their attendance from outside of 50 to 100 miles around the city. So cons, I think, really tend to be fairly local things, and that's why I think the ones that do a really good job of reflecting their community, we try to do that. I think Seattle does a really good job with that. I think Portland does a really good job with that. I think those cons, I think we can all flourish kind of at the same time. What I would love for us, our aspiration is that when people think about Comic Cons in the United States, they think about San Diego, New York, and LA, and then they think about all the other ones. And so, we really would like to be in that sentence with those two big guys. Obviously, San Diego kind of started it all, and New York in the last 10 years has really flourished and grown and become a terrific destination. I was actually at their show in 2019, a week or two before ours. But I don't think of it as competitive. I actually think, we, by and large, that most exhibitors that come are somewhat local. Almost all the attendees are local. The talent sort of figures out where they want to go and what their schedule is, and has to fit with their shooting schedule and where they live and all that. So I think, by and large, we should be trying to help each other more than think about competing with each other.
Now, being that aside from the San Diego Comic Con special edition that may or may not happen this year, are you planning on having any bigger names and vendors like Weta, Workshop, Hasbro, Lego, Disney, etc. at your show this year?
We reach out to those guys every year. We would love to have them. We are a very user-friendly organization to work with, and would love them to think of us as their hometown con and the place that they can come and kind of do whatever they like. So I think we are going to have a couple of big exhibitors this year that we've never had before. That I'm not ready to announce yet, but I will in the next several weeks. And we would love to have one of the big studios, the big producers, whether it's a Mattel or a Disney or a Netflix, come and really, we've got, as you say, 1.3 million square feet of space. There's so much room for them to do fan activations, and so they're welcome to come. I think the one thing that'll be interesting to see, and I worked at Disney for a long time, and when you have conventions on your schedule, you just sort of go to the same one or two things you've had in your budget every year. Well, now none of them have happened for the last 2 years. So everybody has a chance to sort of step back and say, which are the ones I really want to go to? Not necessarily because it's the one I've gone to for the last 10 years, but because it's the right one for my business, it's the right one for my fans, it's the right ones for my properties. So I hope in that light, everybody will take a fresh look at Los Angeles Comic Con.
Now let's talk about the con scene post-COVID. How is LA Comic Con preparing for the enhanced health threats that have postponed cons for so long? Are you going to require vaccination proof? If not, how are you going to ensure COVID adverse conditions in closed spaces?
We don't know exactly what the specific tactical details of our strategy is going to be yet, because the show's not for another 6 months. What I will say is that we, going through the whole process last fall, we developed a great relationship with the LA Department of Public Health, the County Department of Public Health in the city. And we were in almost daily contact with them in terms of what they were projecting and what were all the guidelines that we needed to follow to be safe. So we'll do the same thing this time around. We'll also look for cues from the CDC or the state from Sacramento, but we'll just make sure that whatever is being recommended as being the safest thing that can be done, we'll do that or more. And so I've tried not to guess what those things are going to be, because I think really what's going to happen is we're going to see vaccinations and things sort of as that progresses between now and September. And probably in September, they'll start to really formulate what they want the bigger conventions, the bigger events to follow for fourth quarter. And so we'll do that. Whatever is required, we can handle it. We were prepared to do the most rigorous things for literally every single person that was going to come on property last year. So we'll just do whatever is required.
And what does the post-pandemic con organization taught you guys in terms of how you're planning ahead?
I think that a couple of different things. One thing is you're going to see a lot more integration of technology into the things we do. So our main stage panels and probably the next 4 panel rooms are all going to be broadcast streaming live, so that people who either they don't feel comfortable coming to the show, or they don't live in Los Angeles, but they think the content's really cool, they have more easy access to that. We had some great experiences with the digital meet and greets around the MicroCon. And so I think we're going to expand that both for talent that can't come into the show for various reasons, or for fans that really want to meet that talent, but they can't come into the show. And so I think you'll see a lot more integration of digital broadcasting and digital elements of the core parts of the show. We even did it from a shopping standpoint. We developed an online mall. We developed it with a video game developer, so it was a kind of a fun experience to walk through and shop. And I think we've got close to 100 vendors on it now, and hope to have 200 to 300 of our vendors up on it in time for the show. So I think our lives, what we all learned is that we can live a lot of our lives digitally, but we still want to get together in person. And so what we want to make sure is that for the people that come in person, it's an amazing, unforgettable in-person experience. But for the people who want to sample some or all of what we do at the con digitally, that they've got an easy option to do that as well.
Now let's talk about you as a fan. What are some of your favorite fandoms? I know you mentioned Tom Kenny and SpongeBob SquarePants earlier.
I am, there's a couple of them. I think as a father, there are a lot of those sort of Nick cartoons from the 90s and the early 2000s that are indelibly part of me. And I have 2 kids; they're 21 and 24. And when they were little kids, those shows that were great for the whole family to sit and watch, they have a special place in my heart. For me, as the lifelong nerd fan, I've always been like a hardcore Lord of the Rings guy. Probably read the entire series 15 times. I worked in the movie business for a while. Had the opportunity to work with the C.S. Lewis estate and Walden Media, creating the Chronicle of Narnia's movies 10, 15 years ago. The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, Prince Caspian, and Dawn Treader. Those were amazing experiences. And the core fan in me is a Marvel Comics fan. Actually, I've told this story. I had, when I was in college, I had a collection of every Avengers comic that had ever been made up till that point. Every edition, every annual, every giant size, everything. And when I was in college, I ran out of money, and in order to pay tuition, I had to sell my collection. And I look back on it now, and it's just like, I had to do it, but oh my gosh, I wish I still had those comics now. Not for the value, just for the amazing, the stories and what they meant to me, and would have loved to have sat down and, shared them with my kids. So getting to meet Stan, getting to work with Stan for a few years, I mean, he was just such a hero of mine when I was a kid, was really a dream come true as a sort of grown-up business person. And seeing sort of how Marvel storytelling has flourished in the last 10, 15 years, the brilliant job that Disney and Marvel have done with it. It's just exciting to see. I mean, I really think that in some ways, those Avengers movies made the world safe for nerds like me, because suddenly everybody realized they're great stories and there's something in them for everyone. And it sort of made the world safe for those of us that sometimes see ourselves in a cape or a mask.
You mentioned MCU. Have you watched the first episode of Loki yet?
I have not seen it yet, because I'm actually in Mexico right now.
Okay.
And have been, although this is another thing we learned during COVID. If you can bring your computer and a camera and your phone with you and have high-speed internet, you can work anywhere. But no, I haven't had a chance to see it, but I thought they did a great job with WandaVision. It was so much fun. Loved to see the arc of how it developed, and it's brilliant. And I think on the other side of the Marvel house, I mean, I loved Mandalorian. I love what Favreau did with that. And I just think it's so great to see a new generation of creative talent picking up those stories and taking them to new places. What a guy like Taika Waititi was able to do with Thor. So I think it's a really exciting time to be a fan of all these genres and to be a nerd and to have our whole pop culture appreciate that much more broadly than they maybe used to.
I know you mentioned Avengers comics as you're growing up. Are you currently reading any titles?
I do not read titles as regularly as I should. When I come across them, I devour them, but I have to admit, I do not.
And I know you've been with LA Comic Con, or Comikaze, I should say, since 2012. How has your role progressed over the years?
Well, it's funny when I first encountered it in 2012. I was working for a big trade show company called Advanced Star, and I managed a bunch of big business trade shows, the Licensing Expo and an apparel show called Magic. And I was introduced to the Comikaze team, and we actually acquired half the show because I loved the founders had this amazing energy, and I loved the idea of a show in LA by fans for fans, which is absolutely still our mantra. We're a show that's by fans for fans. And I love the idea that the studios would have a place in their own backyard where they could roll stuff out and interact with fans. And so I got involved at that point as more of from a business side, and I sort of oversaw the planning and the budgets and stuff. And through a whole series of events, my old company got acquired. The new owner didn't want to own consumer shows. They sold our half back to the Comikaze team. And then that team went through some change, and I had left the company, and I got a call saying, "Hey, would you like to come in and run this full time?" And I said, "Absolutely, love the show." So I came back in, I guess, early 2018. So I feel like I've seen it from several different perspectives, and was really fortunate to have the opportunity to meet those guys early and then have a chance to come back later and be more fully involved with everything.
And do you have any other final words for our readers and listeners?
I want to thank them. I want to thank them for hanging in there as fans through what this, just incredibly difficult 18 months, and just let them know that we are so excited to see them in person for the ones that want to come, and the ones that don't, big hug, totally understand. Hopefully we've got enough digital options for you to come see it. I just really want to thank them. I want to thank them for being fans and for being such terrific supporters of LA Comic-Con over the years. And I really hope that we've picked a date that doesn't conflict with holidays, and it's late enough in the year that most of the fans will feel pretty comfortable to come out and join us. And so, this pricing, we're Friday, we're kicking off what we call early bird pricing, but it's a 20% discount on our ticket prices for the 3-day passes. And then after that, we'll do it for the 1-day passes. And so just for people that want to come, this is the best